The news from the archive of mistakes spread across the galaxy faster than light. Within days, every major civilization knew what the expedition had found. 17,000 documented failures, warnings about the dangers of pursuing perfection, knowledge that could help species avoid the same dead ends that trapped the builders. But the news also mentioned the other repositories. 472 more sites scattered across space, and not all of them contained warnings. Some contained weapons, technology, power beyond imagination. Minho returned to Earth a changed person. He had left as a simple scientist, curious about an ancient mystery. He returned as the keeper of humanity's greatest responsibility. The key to the Builder's legacy. The guardian of knowledge that could reshape or destroy civilizations. Earth's leaders met him at the landing facility in Seoul. The President, the Science Council, military commanders, and hundreds of officials all wanting answers. Crowds gathered outside, cheering and celebrating. Humanity had succeeded where thousands of species failed. They were special. They were chosen. Minho felt sick watching the celebrations. "They don't understand," he said to Ambassador Hyun, who had returned with him. "We weren't chosen because we're special. We were chosen because we're ordinary, because we're unfinished." "Try explaining that to them," Hyun replied, watching the crowds wave flags and banners. "Humanity has been the youngest, weakest species in the galaxy for 200 years. Now suddenly we're the most important. People want to celebrate that." The briefings took days. Minho explained the scanner's test over and over. The concept of the life template. The builder's mistakes. The warning about confusing progress with optimization. Some listeners understood. Many didn't want to. "So we should just stay primitive?" asked General Dae-hyun, head of Earth's defense forces. "We should not improve ourselves because improvement led the builders to failure." "No," Minho said patiently. "We should improve carefully, thoughtfully. The builders didn't fail because they advanced. They failed because they lost sight of what made life meaningful. They optimized away uncertainty, challenge, the capacity for genuine change." "But we need to optimize," argued Dr. Sora, head of genetic research. "We have diseases to cure, lifespans to extend, limitations to overcome. Are we supposed to just accept suffering because the builders went too far?" "We're supposed to learn from their mistakes," Ji-won interjected. She had become Minho's strongest ally in these debates. "The archive showed us their path. First they eliminated a disease, good. Then they eliminated all diseases, also good. Then they eliminated all biological vulnerability. Then all limitation. Then all uncertainty. Each step seemed logical, but together they led to emptiness. The question isn't whether to advance. It's how to advance without losing what makes us human." President Young-ho, a thoughtful woman who had led Earth for 10 years, listened carefully. "Dr. Kang, you've seen the archive. You have access to the other repositories. In your professional opinion, what should humanity do?" Minho thought carefully before answering. "We should share the knowledge from the archive with everyone who wants it. The warnings, the lessons, the alternative paths the builders considered. That knowledge belongs to the galaxy, not just to us. As for the other repositories, we need to be extremely careful. The Keeper said some contain weapons, technologies the builders knew were dangerous. We should catalog them, yes, but not rush to use them. And most importantly, we should resist the temptation to use this knowledge to fix humanity. To optimize ourselves, to eliminate our flaws, to pursue perfection. That's exactly what trapped the builders. So we do nothing?" General Dae-hyun sounded frustrated. "We sit on the greatest treasure in galactic history and do nothing. I'm saying we think before we act. We learn before we apply. We understand the consequences before we make irreversible changes." The President nodded slowly. "A cautious approach. But Dr. Kang, you need to understand the political reality. Other species are already demanding access to more repositories. Some are threatening to take that access by force. And here on Earth, there are groups who believe we should use this knowledge to enhance humanity, to finally compete on equal terms with ancient species." "Competing is the trap," Minho said urgently. "That's exactly the mindset that led the builders down their path. They were always trying to be better, stronger, smarter, more perfect. And they succeeded so completely that they lost everything that made existence worthwhile." Over the following weeks, the debate raged across Earth and throughout the galaxy. Some species praised humanity's cautious approach. Others condemned it as hoarding valuable knowledge. A few began searching for repositories on their own. though without the access codes, they couldn't open them. Then came the incident at Repository 47, a coalition of aggressive species, led by a faction of Mordrath warriors, attempted to force open one of the repositories. They used massive weapons, technology that could crack planets. The repository's defenses activated automatically. The entire fleet was destroyed in seconds. 2,000 beings died. The galaxy reeled from the shock. The repositories weren't just locked. They were defended, and their defenses were powerful enough to eliminate a military fleet without effort. Minho was called to an emergency session of the Coalition Council. Every species wanted answers. Some demanded he open more repositories to prove they weren't hiding weapons. Others demanded he keep them all sealed until better security could be arranged. The repositories are testing us, Minho told the assembly. The builders left them defended for a reason. They wanted to ensure that whoever accessed them did so with permission, with the proper understanding, with respect for the knowledge inside. 2,000 beings are dead, Elder Vesh said, his crystal voice harsh, because you won't share the access codes. 2,000 beings are dead because they tried to steal what wasn't theirs, Taeyang countered. The builders made their intentions clear. The knowledge goes to the template carriers. To humanity, we've offered to share it cooperatively. What happened at Repository 47 was the result of refusing that cooperation. The debate continued for hours. Finally, Ambassador Calreth spoke. The ancient Velthrim had been quiet throughout the session, but now his voice commanded attention. We are missing the point. The builders did not leave their repositories defended to punish theft. They left them defended as a final test, a test of wisdom over greed, of patience over impulsiveness, of cooperation over conquest. Humanity passed the first test by carrying the template. Now the galaxy faces the second test. Will we work together to responsibly access this knowledge? Or will we fight over it, destroying ourselves in the process? The choice is ours. But we should remember, the builders achieved transcendence and found it empty. They left us the chance to do better, to advance without losing ourselves, to grow without optimizing away our capacity for growth. If we ignore that lesson, if we pursue their technology without heeding their warnings, we will end up exactly where they did, powerful, perfect, and utterly empty. His words settled over the assembly like snow. Slowly, grudgingly, a consensus formed. A new framework was established. Humanity would lead expeditions to additional repositories, but always with representatives from multiple species. Knowledge would be shared through the Coalition's academic networks. Technologies would be carefully evaluated before any application. Most importantly, there would be no rush to use the builder's knowledge to enhance or optimize any species. The warnings from the archive would be studied first. The path would be chosen carefully. It wasn't a perfect solution. Some species refused to participate, insisting they would find their own way to access the repositories. Others participated but clearly planned to use any knowledge gained for competitive advantage. But it was a start. Back on Earth, Minho stood in his small apartment in Seoul, looking out at the city lights. Jiwon sat on his couch reviewing data from the archive. "Do you think we made the right choice?" she asked. "Sharing the knowledge but refusing to rush into using it?" "I don't know," Minho admitted. "Maybe in refusing to optimize, we're just staying weak. Maybe the builders failed because of something specific to them, and we could succeed where they didn't. But maybe not. Maybe the trap is universal. Maybe any species that pursues perfection ends up losing what makes existence meaningful. So we stay imperfect? We accept our limitations? No, we grow. We learn, we advance. But we do it while staying aware of what we're sacrificing. We make conscious choices instead of blindly pursuing optimization." Jiwon nodded. "The builders left us 17,000 mistakes to learn from. That's 17,000 chances to do better." A message came through on Minho's communicator. It was from Calreth. "Dr. Kang, I thought you should know. I've completed my analysis of why the scanner chose humanity. I believe I understand now." "Tell me," Minho replied. "Every other species in the galaxy has been shaped by their environment, by competition, by the need to survive and thrive. We've all specialized, adapted, optimized. We've had millions of years to do it. Humanity evolved on a world with moderate challenges. Not too harsh, not too easy. You didn't need to develop crystal bodies like us or transcend physical form like the Shawl or perfect warrior instincts like the Mordrath. But you should know the path ahead will not be easy. You've opened doors that some wanted to stay closed. And you've Posey the expedition fleet emerged from slip space into a dead system. 3 stars orbited each other in a tight dance. Their planets had been destroyed or thrown away by gravity long ago. Only one structure remained. A massive construct at the point where the 3 stars' gravitational forces balanced. The repository. Minho stood on the bridge of the research vessel named Sejong. The working group had been carefully assembled for political reasons. 10 species besides humanity: Velthrim, Krenthi, Shoal, Mordrath, Thex, and 5 others. 14 scientists, 8 security personnel, and enough diplomatic observers to make the ship crowded. Dr. Jiwon, the expedition's co-leader and one of Earth's top experts on ancient technology, stood beside Minho. She was analyzing the structure through the ship's sensors. It's enormous, easily the size of a small moon. Power readings are incredible. The energy output is greater than most stars, but it's all contained somehow. The scanner said I would be able to access it, Minho said, feeling the responsibility heavy on his shoulders. I have the codes, the biological key, but I don't know what we'll find inside. Ambassador Yun joined them. The other species representatives are getting impatient. They want to know why we're waiting. Final security checks, Commander Taeyang reported from the tactical station. We've detected no other ships in the system, but that doesn't mean we're alone. This place has been a legend for millions of years. Now that it's accessible, every treasure hunter in the galaxy is probably racing here. Then we should move quickly, said Vekra, the Krenthi representative. Her crystal logic centers glittered. Every moment we wait increases the chance of hostile contact. Minho nodded. Prepare the shuttle. Small team for initial entry. Me, Dr. Jiwon, Commander Taeyang, and 1 representative from each other species. We'll make sure it's safe before bringing in larger research teams. The approach to the repository was tense. The structure was covered in the same symbols Minho had seen in the scanner. Writing that hurt to look at directly because it existed in more dimensions than human eyes could see. As their shuttle got closer, those symbols began to glow. Inheritor detected. A voice boomed through space. Biometric verification required. Minho felt the familiar sensation of being scanned, analyzed down to his cells. The mark on his skin, still faintly visible from his time in the scanner, began to glow in response. Verification complete. Minho Kang of Earth, template carrier. Access granted. The massive structure opened, revealing a docking bay that could have held ships 100 times larger. They glided inside, the entrance sealed behind them with a finality that made several team members nervous. Atmospheric scan shows breathable air, Dr. Jiwon reported. Temperature optimal for carbon-based life. Gravity at Earth standard. It's adapting to us. They stepped out into a chamber that was hard to describe. The walls seemed to shift between solid and see-through, showing glimpses of vast spaces beyond. Light came from everywhere and nowhere, illuminating without shadows. Before them stood a pedestal with a simple interface, a sphere similar to the one in the scanner, but smaller. Welcome to the Archive of Mistakes, the repository's voice announced. I am the Keeper. I exist to preserve and present the failures of the first ones, so that those who come after may learn. We're here to learn, Minho said, approaching the interface. Show us what we need to understand. The sphere pulsed. Suddenly, the chamber transformed. They stood in the middle of a vast library. Shelves extended in impossible directions, each containing not books but crystallized experiences, memories, knowledge, understanding encoded in forms that any advanced mind could comprehend. The first ones recorded 17,412 significant mistakes during their rise to transcendence. Each is preserved here in complete detail. The reasoning that led to the error, the consequences that followed, and the understanding gained. Vekra processed this quickly. 17,000 mistakes? And they still achieved transcendence? Mistakes are not failures if learned from. The first ones achieved transcendence because they documented their errors. They failed because they didn't recognize their final mistake until too late. What was the final mistake? Jiwon asked. Believing that perfection was the goal. Come, I will show you. The Keeper guided them through the archive. What they saw changed their understanding of the first ones completely. These weren't distant, perfect beings. These were people, different from current species but still fundamentally people, who struggled, failed, tried again, and slowly built their way toward godhood. They saw the first ones' early days when they were still biological beings not unlike current species. They watched as the builders discovered genetic modification and faced ethical questions about reshaping themselves. They witnessed debates about integrating with machines, transcending physical form, merging consciousness. Each decision was documented, each consequence recorded. The builders had been careful in their self-documentation, believing that knowledge, even knowledge of failure, was precious. They weren't trying to become perfect, Minho realized. Watching early builders argue about their path, they were trying to solve problems. To eliminate suffering, extend life, understand the universe. Transcendence wasn't a goal. It was a side effect of solving smaller problems. Correct. They climbed the ladder of advancement one step at a time. Each step seemed logical alone. Only when they reached the top did they realize they had climbed into a cage. The keeper showed them the middle period when the builders had achieved what most species would consider miraculous. They could reshape matter with thought, travel between dimensions, manipulate time. They had eliminated disease, death, scarcity. They had created paradise, so what went wrong? Taeyang asked. They continued. They eliminated not just suffering but also challenge. Not just death but also change. Not just limitation but also choice. They optimized themselves so thoroughly that they became predictable. Perfect beings making perfect decisions with perfect knowledge. And perfect beings do not grow, do not change, do not discover. They simply exist. The final memories were heartbreaking. The builders in their transcended state, beings of pure energy and consciousness, realizing too late that they had traded life for existence. They had all the power in the universe and nothing meaningful to do with it. They knew everything and had nothing left to discover. They were eternal and had no purpose. That's when they built the scanner, Jiwon whispered, tears on her face. When they realized what they'd lost? Yes, they could not go back. They could not undo their perfection. But they could ensure that whatever species came after them had the chance to choose differently. They could leave warnings, knowledge, alternatives. This archive contains not just records of their mistakes but also paths not taken, technologies they developed but chose not to use, social structures they considered but rejected, philosophical approaches they explored but abandoned. Everything they learned, preserved for those who come after. The keeper brought them to a central chamber where 17,000 crystals floated in precise formation. Each contained a complete record of a mistake and lessons learned. The first ones wish you to know, progress is not a straight line toward perfection. It is a winding path through possibility. The goal is not to reach the end but to travel well, to remain capable of surprise, to keep the capacity for meaningful choice. Take this knowledge, learn from their errors, but do not seek to become them. Seek to become better versions of yourselves. Minho stepped forward, looking at the impossible library around them. How do we access this information?
How do we study it?
Each species represented here may select one mistake to study immediately. The knowledge will be translated to your understanding, encoded in forms you can process. Choose wisely. Some mistakes are more relevant to your current development than others. The representatives talked among themselves. This was the moment they came for, access to knowledge beyond their understanding. But the keeper's warning was clear. Choose wisely. Bekra spoke first. We wish to learn about the builder's mistake in over-optimizing logic and losing intuition. Our species faces similar questions. A crystal floated toward her. One by one, other species made their choices. The Mordrath chose to learn about balancing warrior culture with social evolution. The Shawl selected knowledge about spiritual transcendence and its potential problems. Each species chose a mistake that matched their own path. Finally, it was humanity's turn. There are so many, Jiwon said, overwhelmed. How do we choose just one? Minho looked around at the 17,000 documented failures. Which lesson did humanity need most? Show us, he said to the keeper, the mistake that led them to believe perfection was achievable. The first time they confused progress with optimization. A wise choice. This mistake is foundational. All others flow from it. A crystal floated toward Minho. As it touched his hand, knowledge flooded into him. He saw the builders in their early days, achieving their first major success. They eliminated a genetic flaw that caused disease. It was celebrated as a triumph. But it established a pattern of thinking. Flaws are problems to eliminate. Imperfection is something to fix. From that moment, the builders began. The Coalition Council chamber was enormous. It was built to hold representatives from hundreds of different species, each needing different air, gravity, and temperature. The room had special zones for each type of alien. At the center, a massive hologram could display information in any format needed. Today, the chamber was more crowded than ever. Every major civilization had sent representatives. Dozens of smaller species demanded to be included. All 3,214 species that had been tested and rejected by the scanner wanted answers. Minho stood in the central area, feeling completely inadequate. Ambassador Hyun stood beside him. Commander Taeyang positioned himself nearby. The Earth delegation had been expanded to include scientists, cultural experts, and military advisors. But Minho knew the burden of explanation rested on him, the council speaker. A Velthrim elder named Forthiel called the assembly to order. Her crystal voice resonated through the room's translation systems, making her words understandable to every species present. We meet to address the unprecedented events at the scanner. Dr. Minho Kang of Earth has been granted access to the First One's legacy after 4 million years of testing. We gather to understand why, to comprehend the implications, and to determine how the coalition should proceed. She turned to Minho. Dr. Kang, please share what the scanner revealed to you. Minho stepped forward. His presentation appeared in the hologram. He had spent hours with Ambassador Hyun, organizing the information to make sense to the diverse audience. Thank you, Speaker Forthiel. What I'm about to share isn't just about humanity's success. It's about understanding what the scanner was truly looking for, and why it's been rejecting species for so long. The display showed an image of the scanner, then shifted to show cell structures. The test was never about advancement, achievement, or worthiness in any traditional sense. The builders who created the scanner were searching for something very specific, the fundamental template of carbon-based life, preserved in its most unchanged form. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Minho continued, "Let me show you. This is Velthrim's cell structure." The display showed crystal cells, elegant and efficient. Millions of years of evolution have optimized your biology for long life and integration with your crystal environment. You are a triumph of adaptation. The image shifted. This is Shal biology, modified for enhanced consciousness and spiritual awareness. Another triumph of evolution. More species flashed across the display, each showing their unique biological signatures. Each species here has evolved, adapted, optimized. You've refined your genetics, sometimes through natural selection, sometimes through deliberate modification. You've integrated technology with biology. You've gone beyond limitations, and in doing so you've moved away from the base template, the fundamental pattern of carbon-based life from which you all originally came. The display showed human cell structure. Compared to the elegant complexity of other species, it looked almost primitive. Messy. Unrefined. This is humanity. We're young. Only 2 centuries in space. We haven't significantly modified our genetics. We haven't integrated technology into our biology. We haven't specialized our evolution for any particular advantage. We are essentially what most species look like near the beginning of their development. A Krenthi representative's voice cut through the chamber, sharp and precise. Are you saying that being primitive is an advantage? That our billions of years of evolutionary refinement are somehow inferior to your underdeveloped state? Not inferior, Minho replied carefully. Different. The scanner measured divergence from the baseline template. Humanity showed only 9% divergence. Every other species tested showed divergence of 70% or higher. We're not better. We're just closer to the source. He changed the display to show the message from the builders. The first ones left an explanation. They achieved transcendence. They became beings of pure energy and consciousness. With mastery over matter and time, they became essentially perfect. And in that perfection, they lost something. They lost the capacity for genuine change, for surprise, for growth. When you know everything, when you've optimized everything, when you've perfected your existence, where do you go from there? What meaning does existence have when there are no more unknowns? The chamber fell silent as the implications settled. Minho continued, his voice soft but carrying through the translation systems. The builders realized that in their journey to transcendence, they had sacrificed the very thing that made life meaningful. So they left their legacy not to their equals, species that had achieved similar advancement, but to whichever species still kept the template. The species that was still unfinished, still uncertain, still full of potential that hadn't been locked into specialized forms. That species is humanity, not because we're exceptional, but because we're still undefined. We haven't yet chosen what we'll become. We still contain all the possibilities. A massive Mordrath warrior stood, her scaled body imposing. This is unacceptable. My species has fought for 1,000,000 years to perfect our warrior culture. We have achieved excellence in combat strategy, honor. And we are told this disqualifies us? That we should have remained weak and undefined? No, Minho said firmly. You should take pride in what you've become. The scanner wasn't saying you're wrong. It was just looking for something specific, a reference point, a baseline. Think of it as needing an unmodified control sample in an experiment. That doesn't make the experimental subjects inferior. It just means you need something untouched for comparison. Ambassador Hyun stepped forward. The builders didn't lock their legacy away from specialized species out of spite. They locked it away because they needed a key, a species that could understand their warning about the dangers of over-optimization, and they needed that key to be held by someone who could share the knowledge responsibly. Which brings us to the critical question, Speaker Fortheel said. The scanner has granted humanity access to the first one's repositories. Hundreds of them, scattered across known space containing technology and knowledge beyond our understanding. What does Earth intend to do with this access? All eyes turned to Minho. This was the moment that would define humanity's relationship with the galaxy. We intend to share it, Minho said clearly. The builders' message was explicit. They wanted their inheritors to learn from their mistakes. That knowledge isn't meant to be kept secret. It's meant to help all of us avoid the dead ends they encountered. However, Ambassador Hyun added, we must be thoughtful about how we share this knowledge. The builders achieved levels of technology that could be catastrophic if misused. We propose forming an oversight committee, including representatives from multiple species, to carefully catalog and distribute the knowledge from the repositories. And who would lead this committee? Asked Elder Vesh, his crystal voice skeptical. I suppose Earth expects to maintain control. We expect to maintain the key, Hyun replied. The scanner granted access to humanity. We can't change that, but leadership of the research efforts should be collaborative. The Velthrim have studied the scanner longer than any species. The Krenthi have unmatched analytical capabilities. The Shal bring philosophical depth. Every species has something to contribute, Taeyang spoke up. There's also a security concern. The moment the repositories activated, they became targets. There will be species, pirates, rogue states, radical factions, who will try to seize this technology by force. Protecting these sites will require coordinated military effort. A Thex representative raised a tentacle in question. And if a species refuses to participate in this cooperative framework, if we choose to seek the repositories independently, the repositories won't open for you, Minho explained. The scanner gave me, and by extension humanity, the access codes. Without our cooperation, the doors stay sealed. But that's not a threat. It's an opportunity for us to work together to ensure this knowledge benefits everyone. Debates erupted across the chamber. Representatives argued with each other in dozens of languages. Some supported humanity's framework. Others demanded more direct access. Still others questioned whether any species should have the builder's knowledge. Speaker Fortheel called for order. This matter requires more deliberation than we can accomplish today. I propose we establish a preliminary working group to assess the first repository and evaluate its contents. This group will include human representatives, obviously, but also delegates from at least 10 other major species. Once we have concrete information about what the repositories contain, we can make more informed decisions about distribution and access. The proposal passed, though not without significant opposition. Some species felt it gave Earth too much power. Others felt it didn't give Earth enough authority, potentially leading to chaos. As the session broke up, Minho found himself surrounded by representatives wanting private words. Some offered congratulations. Others made thinly veiled threats. A few genuinely seemed interested in understanding what had happened. Kalreth appeared through the crowd, parting the masses. Dr. Kang, a word. They moved to a quieter section. Kalreth's crystal body refracted the light in patterns that Minho had learned to read as thoughtful. You handled yourself well. Classification, remarkable. Minho blinked. That wasn't right. That wasn't what anyone had heard before. Species H. The chamber filled with activity. The walls came alive with flowing text in thousands of languages. The sphere at the center began to change, opening like a flower, revealing layer after layer of strange machinery inside. Minho's mind raced. Template life. What did that mean? Why had humanity succeeded where every other species failed? The scanner's voice returned, but it sounded different now. Less harsh, almost friendly, as if a wall had come down between them. Dr. Minho Kang of Earth. You have asked what this means. Explanation is required. Will you accept communication? Yes, Minho said immediately. Yes, please explain. Context necessary. This unit was built 4 million years ago. Creators, the first ones. Purpose, to find the inheritors. Suddenly, Minho's mind filled with information. Not words but direct understanding, as if knowledge was being written into his brain. He saw the builders, the ones who made the scanner. They were beings so advanced, they seemed more like gods than people. They had mastered energy, matter, and time itself. But they had a problem. They were dying. Minho whispered, understanding flowing into him, not as individuals. As a pattern, as a form of existence, correct. The first ones had evolved beyond biological limits. They had gone beyond physical form. But in going beyond, they lost something important. Something they didn't understand until it was gone. More images flooded Minho's mind. The builders trying to get back what they lost. Failing. Watching their civilization slowly fade even though they had godlike powers. They could reshape entire galaxies but couldn't solve their own problem. They built this unit to find the answer, to scan every form of intelligent life that came after them, to find the species that still had what they lost. But what was it? Minho asked. What did they lose? What do humans have? Searching for explanation in your language. Words inadequate. Approximation, the pattern of life itself. The template from which all biological existence comes. The sphere showed him images, cell structures from hundreds of species. Minho, trained as a scientist who studied aliens, could see the differences. Each species had evolved in unique ways, adapted to their environments, specialized for survival. But there was something else. Each species, in becoming specialized, had lost certain elements, removed redundancies, eliminated inefficiencies. They had refined the base template of life. Observe the Velthrim, ancient species, highly evolved. Cells optimized for long life and crystal integration. Result? Fundamental life template divergence 73%. The images changed. The Shul. Spiritually advanced. Biology modified for enhanced consciousness. Result? Fundamental life template divergence 81%. More species flashed past. None below 70% divergence. Each had evolved so far from the basic template that they had become something else. Something specialized and advanced but fundamentally different from the original pattern. Observe. Humanity. Minho saw his own cells, human DNA, the chemistry that made him alive. It looked messier than the others. Less refined. There were redundancies, inefficiencies, structures that seemed to serve no clear purpose. Human cellular architecture. Unspecialized. Genetic code highly variable. Evolutionary optimization, minimal. Result, fundamental life template divergence 9%. Minho stared at the image of his own biology. We're unspecialized? Clarification. Humanity has not significantly changed from the basic pattern of carbon-based life. Your species keeps the fundamental structure, the original template, with minimal modification. You are in essence what life looks like before specialization. Understanding hit Minho hard. We're younger. We haven't had time to evolve as far as other species. We're still close to the starting point. Correct. Other species. Millions of years of evolution. Extreme environmental pressures. Genetic modification. Technology integration. All lead to divergence from the base template. Humanity recently emerged. Minimal environmental pressure. No significant genetic modification. No biological technology integration. Result, you retain the pattern. You are the template preserved. Minho felt a laugh bubble up in his chest. So we're not worthy because we're exceptional. We're worthy because we're ordinary. We're worthy because we're young and unchanged and still basically the same as when we first evolved. Interpretation requires adjustment. You are not ordinary. You are fundamental. The first one searched for this pattern because it contains something that transcendence lacks. What? Uncertainty. Potential. The capacity for change without knowing the outcome. Life, Dr. Kang, is not defined by what it is, but by what it might become. Specialized species have already become. Humanity has not yet chosen what it will be. The sphere pulsed. Minho felt emotions that weren't his own. The memory of the builders, their regret, their realization that in becoming perfect they had lost the ability to change, to grow, to be surprised by existence. The first ones encoded a message in this unit, for the species that kept the template, for the inheritors. Will you receive it? Minho nodded, unable to speak. Light surrounded him. Suddenly he wasn't in the chamber anymore. He stood in a place that might have been a memory or a dream. Before him stood a figure, humanoid in shape but clearly not human, made of light and shadow and possibility. Greetings, inheritor, the figure said. Its voice carried the weight of millions of years. If you are hearing this, then you carry within you what we lost. The pattern of life itself, unchanged, full of potential we spent forever trying to get back. The figure gestured. Worlds appeared around them. Billions of planets, each filled with life in countless forms. We built wonders. We reshaped the universe to our will. We achieved immortality, total knowledge, power beyond imagination, and in doing so we lost the one thing that made existence meaningful, the unknown future. We could not die, so life lost meaning. We could not grow, so achievement lost purpose. We could not be surprised, so existence became a prison of infinite knowledge and zero discovery. The figure turned to Minho, its eyes sad and ancient. We leave you our legacy, not of power but of warning. You are young. You are fragile. You have not yet specialized yourself into a dead end. In your DNA, in your cells, in the very pattern of your existence, you carry the template, the possibility of becoming something new. Do not follow our path. Do not sacrifice potential for perfection. Stay uncertain. Stay chaotic. Stay alive in the truest sense. Be beings who don't know what they will become, who must discover their future rather than calculate it. The figure began to fade. You will find our repositories scattered across the galaxies. Technology, yes, but more importantly, knowledge. The mistakes we made, the paths we chose that led to empty transcendence. Learn from us, inheritors. Be better than we were. Be less perfect and more alive. The vision faded. Minho found himself back in the chamber, tears streaming down his face. He understood now. The test had never been about worthiness in the normal sense. It had been about finding a species that still had the potential to choose, to change, to be genuinely surprised by what they might become. Humanity, in all its messy, unspecialized, contradictory glory, was that species. The scanner's voice returned to normal. Message delivered. Authorization granted. Humanity is recognized as the inheritors. Access to First One's repositories enabled. Further instructions will be provided upon your return to your people. The mark on Minho's body changed. It became a key, a symbol, proof of humanity's new status, Dr. Minho Kang. You have succeeded where thousands failed, not because you are superior, but because you are unfinished. Return to your species. Share what you have learned, and remember the warning of the first ones. I will, Minho promised, his voice rough with emotion. Thank you. No thanks necessary. You are simply what was sought, now go. The galaxy waits for explanation. The platform beneath Minho began to move, carrying him back toward the exit. As he left the central chamber, he took one last look at the sphere, still open, still glowing with ancient purpose. For 4 million years it had waited. For 4 million years it had tested every species that came, looking for one thing: life in its most fundamental form, unspecialized, unchanged, full of possibility, and it had found that life in humanity. The shuttle arrived to take him back. As Minho boarded, he couldn't help but laugh. The galaxy thought humans were nothing special. Because they were young and weak and unchanged, they had no idea that those were exactly the qualities that made humanity precious beyond measure. The shuttle crossed back through the scanner's threshold. In the station, Ambassador Hyun stood at the communications center, overwhelmed by urgent messages from Earth, from the Council, from dozens of species demanding explanation. The scanner's energy signature is completely different, Commander Taeyang reported. It's been dormant except during testing. Now it's fully active. Something fundamental has changed. They watched Minho's shuttle approach. Through the sensors, they could see him sitting in the passenger compartment, his face pale but calm. The glowing mark on his skin was visible even through his clothes. Get a medical team ready, Hyun ordered. We don't know what the scanner did to him. Medical team standing by, responded Dr. Yunji, the station's doctor. But Ambassador, the readings I'm getting from him show his vital signs. The ancient machine floated in empty space, far from any star or planet. It had been there for millions of years, waiting. The different alien races called it the scanner. Nobody knew who built it or why. They only knew one thing. It rejected everyone. Ambassador Hyun stood by the window of the space station, watching another group approach the scanner. This time it was the Krenthi, aliens made of living crystal. They sparkled like diamonds as their ship moved closer to the black structure. She had seen this happen many times before. Every time ended the same way. They're going to fail, said Commander Tae-yang. He stood next to her with his arms crossed. The Krenthi are proud. This will hurt them. Hyun nodded. She knew he was right. For 300 years, every species in the galaxy had tried to pass the scanner's test. More than 3,000 different alien races had sent their best representatives. Warriors, scientists, diplomats, religious leaders. It didn't matter who they sent. The scanner rejected them all. The Krenthi entered the scanner. Through the station's cameras, Hyun watched them stand before the central machine. Light flashed across their crystal bodies. Then came the sound, a deep noise that everyone could somehow hear even through the vacuum of space. It was the sound of rejection. The Krenthi came out, glowing marks on their bodies showing they had failed. Another species. Another failure. What is it looking for? Tae-yang asked. Hyun shook her head. Nobody knows. The Velthram thought it wanted advanced technology. The Shal thought it wanted spiritual wisdom. The Mordrath thought it wanted military strength. They were all wrong. And now Earth wants to try. Tae-yang sounded tired. We're the youngest species here. We've only been in space for 200 years. What makes us think we can succeed? Because we were invited, Hyun said. The old Velthram ambassador told Earth to try. He said something about our history made him curious. What? He wouldn't say. He just told Earth to send someone. Not our best person, he said. Send someone who understands. A signal came through. A human ship was arriving. Tae-yang and Hyun watched as a small transport appeared. It was plain and simple, nothing fancy. Not like the grand ships other species sent. That's our representative. Tae-yang sounded surprised. Hyun checked her computer. Dr. Min-ho Kang. He's a scientist who studies aliens and how life evolves. He spent 10 years working in refugee camps helping aliens from different species. A scientist? Not a general or a hero? No, Hyun said. Earth debated for weeks. They finally decided that if the scanner is looking for something basic, something real, it won't be in our greatest achievements. It will be in who we actually are. The ship docked. Dr. Kang walked out. He looked ordinary. Middle-aged, wearing simple clothes, carrying one small bag. He walked like someone more comfortable in a laboratory than a space station. Hyun and Tae-yang met him at the door. Dr. Kang. I'm Ambassador Hyun. This is Commander Tae-yang. Welcome. Min-ho bowed slightly. Thank you. Sorry for the simple arrival. They told me fancy ceremony wasn't necessary. It isn't, Hyun said. The scanner doesn't care about that. Are you ready? You know what you're volunteering for? Minho nodded. I've read all the data. Every species that tried this failed. The scanner judges something, but nobody knows what. If I fail, it's just another data point. If I somehow succeed, maybe we learn something. You're not nervous? Tae-yang asked. Terrified, Minho admitted with a small smile. But I've spent my career studying what makes species different and what makes them the same. If I can help answer this mystery, I have to try. They could see the scanner through the windows, floating in space, dark and silent, waiting. Hyun put her hand on Minho's shoulder. The whole galaxy is watching. No pressure, Minho laughed nervously. Right, no pressure. He walked toward the shuttle bay. Hyun and Tae-yang watched him go. This ordinary man was carrying the hopes of the entire human race. Do you think he has a chance? Tae-yang asked quietly. Hyun watched Minho walk away. 3,214 species have tried. 3,214 failed. The chances are basically zero. That's not what I asked. Hyun was quiet for a moment. The old Velthram ambassador has studied the scanner longer than humans have been in space. If he thinks we might be different, maybe we are. They went back to watch as Minho's shuttle launched. It was a tiny light crossing the dark space toward the ancient structure that had rejected every intelligent species it had ever tested. Across the station, across the fleet of watching ships, across 100 worlds, Billions of beings watched and waited. Representatives from every major species gathered their people around screens and communication devices. One more species. One more attempt. One more certain rejection. That's what everyone believed would happen. The scanner had never accepted anyone. Why would humans be different? Nino sat alone in the shuttle, watching the scanner grow larger through the window. Up close it was enormous and frightening. The surface seemed to move and shift, covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. The shuttle pilot, a young Velthrim named Kaleth, spoke through the intercom. "We're approaching the entrance, Dr. Kang. Once we go through, I can't communicate with you anymore." "Are you sure you want to do this?" "I'm sure," Minho replied. His hands were shaking, but he took deep breaths to calm himself. Fear was natural. Fear could be controlled. The shuttle passed through an invisible barrier. Suddenly, the scanner was right in front of them. A huge opening appeared in its side like a mouth opening. The shuttle flew through into a vast chamber filled with light that seemed to come from nowhere. "This is where I leave you," Kaleth's voice crackled. "The scanner will guide you now. May your gods protect you, human." "Thank you," Minho said. He grabbed his bag and walked to the airlock. He stepped out into the chamber. The shuttle left immediately, and the opening sealed behind it. Minho was alone. Even his breathing seemed quiet, as if the space itself absorbed all sound. A path lit up ahead of him, leading deeper into the structure. Minho followed it. His footsteps made no noise. The walls showed images flowing past like dreams. Alien worlds, strange creatures, scenes of beauty and horror. The path led to a central room. There it was, the scanner's heart. A sphere hung in the middle of the space, slowly rotating. Light pulsed inside it in patterns that looked like language or mathematics or music all at once. Looking at it, Minho felt like the sphere was looking back at him, reading him in ways that had nothing to do with normal sight. He walked onto a platform that extended toward the sphere. He thought about all the beings who had stood exactly where he stood now. How many thousands had been found unworthy? The sphere pulsed. A voice filled the chamber, speaking directly into Minho's mind in a language he shouldn't understand but somehow did. "Supplicant, state your origin." "I am Minho Kang of Earth," he said, keeping his voice steady. "Of the species called humanity." Humanity. Classification recently emerged. Technologically inferior. Militarily weak. Culturally fragmented. Lifespan, brief. Potential, unknown. The words were harsh but true. Compared to most species in the galaxy, humans were young, weak, and divided. "Why have you come?" "To be tested," Minho replied. "To see if my species has what you're looking for. Thousands have been tested. All have failed." "What makes you believe you will be different?" Minho took a breath. What did humans have that ancient wise species didn't? What separated them from species with perfect logic or spiritual transcendence or warrior perfection? "I don't know if we will be," he admitted. "But I had to try. Learning things, understanding things, even when the odds are against us. That's what we do. Curiosity is not unique. Others are curious. They failed." "Then I don't know," Minho said. "I don't know what you're looking for. But I'm here. Test me." The sphere pulsed. Suddenly, Minho felt the scanner's full attention on him. It was examining everything about him. His genetics, his thoughts, his memories. It reached into his past, seeing his childhood, his years of study, his choice to work in refugee camps instead of famous laboratories. It saw the alien child he saved, staying awake for 3 nights to create a medicine. It saw the families he helped when their home worlds were destroyed. It saw 100 moments of his life, big and small, woven together into the pattern of who he was. The scanner went deeper, past his individual life into humanity itself. Minho felt it examining human history, their wars and peace, their art and destruction, their evolution from simple cells in ancient oceans to builders of starships. Then it went even deeper, past what humans had built or achieved. It looked at what they were at the most basic level. It examined life itself as it existed in human form. Minho gasped. The examination intensified. He felt like he was being taken apart and rebuilt, analyzed from his conscious thoughts down to the smallest parts of his cells. The light from the sphere grew brighter and brighter. Minho closed his eyes but couldn't look away. The scanner's attention felt like a physical weight pressing on his entire being. Then suddenly it stopped. The light dimmed. The pressure vanished. Minho opened his eyes, breathing hard, his body shaking. The sphere hung before him, silent now. Analysis complete. This was it. The moment of judgment. Minho prepared himself for rejection like everyone before him. The sphere pulsed once, twice, 3 times. Each pulse sent waves of light through the chamber,